Caitlin Clark's signing with Adidas sent a ripple through the sports industry that could only be described as seismic. For Nike, it was a twist of fate they didn't see coming, a bit like slipping on your own shoes. This wasn't just another athlete endorsement. This was a rising star choosing the competition over the swoosh, and for Nike, it felt like the shot heard around the world. The moment Clark put pen to paper with Adidas, she wasn't just making a deal, she was making a statement. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Caitlin Clark's talent on the court has been undeniable for years. Her name whispered in awe long before it was shouted by the crowds. She's the kind of player who makes defenders second-guess their career choices. The kind of talent that has basketball fans dreaming about what she might do next. But it's more than her skill that makes her stand out. It's her presence, her swagger, the way she plays with a blend of calculation and pure instinct. When Clark steps onto the court, you can almost feel the air shift. There's a sense that something's about to happen, and usually, it's Clark delivering a highlight reel performance. Nike, with its long history of signing top talent, must have thought it had this one in the bag. After all, they've been the go-to brand for athletes seeking to build their legacy. From Michael Jordan to LeBron James, Nike has an unparalleled track record of turning stars into icons. But this time, their approach didn't quite hit the mark. Maybe they underestimated Clark's sense of independence, or perhaps they overplayed their hand. Either way, the decision to go with Adidas was a curveball they didn't see coming. Adidas, on the other hand, played its cards perfectly. They've been quietly building a roster of young talent that fits their vision of the future, and Clark is the crown jewel of that strategy. By locking her into a deal, Adidas not only gained a phenomenal athlete, but also sent a clear message to Nike. The game has changed. They didn't just want Clark on their team. They needed her to shift the balance of power in their favor. And Clark? She seemed to like the idea of shaking things up. This isn't just about shoes and apparel. It's about influence and legacy. Clark's move to Adidas signals a generational shift, a moment where a new wave of athletes is looking beyond the traditional choices. For years, Nike has been the default, the automatic assumption for top-tier talent. But Clark's choice indicates that the next generation isn't content with sticking to the old script. They're looking to write their own stories on their own terms and the partners who get their vision. The implications for Nike are significant. They're not just losing an athlete, they're losing cultural relevance among the youth, the audience that dictates what's cool and what's not. When an athlete like Clark chooses Adidas, it suggests a broader shift in the way younger generations view the brands they support. It's a bit like seeing your favorite indie band sign with a different label. Suddenly, what was once underground has gone mainstream, and the old guard has to scramble to keep up. For Clark, the decision seemed to come down to more than just money or exposure. It was about alignment, finding a brand that matched her values, her style, and her vision for the future. Adidas clearly tapped into that, recognizing that Clark isn't just a player. She's a movement, a force that could reshape the landscape of women's sports. She's the kind of athlete who doesn't just play the game, she changes the way the game is played. And in Adidas, she saw a partner ready to take that journey with her. The humor in this situation is that Nike's loss is almost self-inflicted. They've been so dominant for so long that it's possible they got complacent. Maybe they assumed Clark would come to them because, well, everyone always has. But Clark, with her unpredictable and competitive nature, was never going to be just another tick in Nike's win column. She's the type to drain a three-pointer and stare down the crowd, letting everyone know she's in control on her terms. As Adidas celebrated their win, Nike found themselves on the back foot, grappling with a decision that now looks like a missed opportunity. It's as if they passed on a layup, thinking they'd get another chance, only to watch as Clark went full court for the slam dunk with their biggest competitor. It's not that Nike lacks talent on its roster. It's that they missed out on a player whose influence could have defined the next decade. For Nike, this isn't a knockout blow, but it's a wake-up call they can't ignore. They built an empire on the idea of being the coolest, most relevant brand on the planet. But empires fall when they stop evolving, when they start believing their own hype. Caitlin Clark's move to Adidas shows that the new generation of athletes isn't afraid to break from tradition, to go against the grain and choose their own path. And in doing so, they're forcing brands like Nike to rethink their approach. Caitlin Clark's partnership with Adidas is more than just a business move. It's a strategic statement. Think of it as a chess game, where every piece counts, and Clark has just made a masterstroke move that blindsided the reigning champion. In a market where Nike has long held a monopoly over top-tier athlete endorsements, Clark's choice is a signal that change is not only possible but inevitable. It feels like watching a once dominant team suddenly realize that the competition isn't just closing in, they're leading the race. To understand why this deal is so significant, it's essential to appreciate who Caitlin Clark is beyond her highlight reels and buzzer beaters. Clark's rise to stardom has been meteoric, powered by more than just her shooting skills. She embodies a charisma that resonates with fans far beyond the basketball court. Her style of play is electrifying, not just because of her points per game, but because of the way she plays, with flair, intelligence, and a competitive edge that leaves spectators on the edge of their seats. Clark isn't just a player. She's a performer who knows how to command a stage and leave an audience wanting more. Adidas must have seen that spark, that undeniable quality that makes Clark different from other athletes. They weren't just looking for a talented player. They were looking for a cultural catalyst, someone who could drive a narrative and connect with a new generation in a way that feels genuine. Clark's authenticity, her unfiltered passion for the game, and her unpretentious attitude fit perfectly into the brand's evolving image. By securing her, Adidas positioned itself not just as an athletic company, but as a brand with its finger on the pulse of what's coming next. For Nike, this was a bitter pill to swallow. The swoosh has always been synonymous with the pinnacle of sports culture, with a roster that reads like a Hall of Fame lineup. Losing out on a player like Caitlin Clark isn't just a miss. It's a sign that their golden formula might need some serious recalibration. Their brand strategy has long relied on the idea that being associated with Nike is the natural trajectory for any athlete with serious ambitions. But Clark's deal with Adidas is a wake-up call, suggesting that maybe just maybe the traditional route is no longer the only path to greatness. This deal also speaks volumes about the changing dynamics in women's sports, particularly in basketball. For too long, female athletes have had to fight for the same recognition and respect afforded to their male counterparts. Clark's agreement with Adidas isn't just a win for her, it's a win for the whole movement. It's a sign that the market is finally acknowledging the immense value and influence of women in sports, not as an afterthought, but as central figures in their own right. Clark's rise is a symbol of progress, proof that women's sports are not only worth watching, but are leading the charge in cultural impact. Adidas has strategically seized this moment, doubling down on its commitment to female athletes and making it clear that they're not just following trends, they're setting them. This isn't their first major move in this space, but it might be their most significant yet. They've seen the opportunity to reshape their identity, and Clark is the perfect partner to lead that charge. Together, they're not just pushing boundaries, they're redefining what those boundaries are. What makes this move even more fascinating is how it disrupts the established playbook of athlete endorsements. Traditionally, these deals have focused on maximizing exposure, plastering an athlete's face across every billboard, commercial, and sneaker design imaginable. But with Caitlin Clark, Adidas is taking a different approach. They're focusing on building a narrative around her, investing in her story as much as her statistics. It's a play to not only capture the attention of sports fans, but to tap into a broader audience that values authenticity and relatability over mere star power. Nike now faces a challenge that goes beyond replacing one athlete on their roster. They need to confront the reality that the market is evolving in ways they hadn't anticipated. Their brand ethos has always been about striving for greatness, about pushing the limits of what's possible. But Clark's decision to go with Adidas suggests that today's athletes are looking for something deeper, a connection that feels more like a partnership than a sponsorship. The old approach of simply being the biggest name in the room won't cut it anymore. Adidas's strategy with Clark is more nuanced than just slapping her name on a pair of sneakers. It's about integrating her vision into the brand itself, crafting products and campaigns that speak to who she is as an athlete and as a person. This kind of approach feels different because it is different. It's a step toward a more inclusive and engaged way of thinking about sportswear. By centering the athlete's individuality, Adidas is sending a message that they're in the business of amplifying voices, not just building brands. The larger story here is about evolution. It's about how brands like Adidas are adapting to the changing landscape of sports culture, where individuality and personal expression are just as important as performance. Caitlin Clark embodies that evolution. She's not interested in just being another athlete who happens to be good at what she does. She wants to be an influence, a force that redefines the conversation around what it means to be a player in the modern era. Her move to Adidas isn't just a shift in brand allegiance. It's a declaration of independence, a statement that she's carving out her own path, and she's doing it her way. Nike's stumble here doesn't spell doom for the brand, but it does highlight a vulnerability they've rarely had to confront. For decades, they've been the juggernaut, the brand everyone else measured themselves against. But this moment with Caitlin Clark shows that even the giants of the industry aren't immune to missteps. They'll need to rethink how they engage with the next generation of athletes if they want to maintain their position at the top. Clark's story is also a reminder of how quickly the sports world can change. Just a few years ago, the idea of a player of her caliber choosing Adidas over Nike would have seemed improbable. But the tides have shifted, and with them, so have the expectations of what an endorsement deal should look like. Today's athletes are brand conscious in ways that go far beyond logos and commercials. They want to be part of something that aligns with their values, their passions, and their vision for the future. As Caitlin Clark continues to blaze her trail, Adidas is right there beside her, setting the stage for what promises to be an exciting journey. This partnership is poised to not only elevate Clark's career, but also to set a new standard in how brands and athletes collaborate. It's less about traditional sponsorship and more about a meeting of minds, a blending of ambition, where both sides are working towards something greater than just commercial success. What makes this moment truly exciting is that it's not just about one athlete or one brand. It's about a shift in the culture of sports itself. It's about athletes taking control of their narratives, brands that are willing to listen and adapt, and a marketplace that is increasingly driven by authenticity over legacy. Caitlin Clark's partnership with Adidas is the embodiment of this change, a symbol of a new era where the rules are being rewritten right before our eyes. The next few years will be crucial for both Nike and Adidas as they battle for dominance in this rapidly evolving landscape. Nike, with its resources and history, isn't out of the game by any means, but they'll need to rethink their strategies if they hope to stay competitive. They must recognize that the days of one-size-fits-all endorsements are gone, and that athletes like Clark are leading a movement toward a more thoughtful, purposeful way of building partnerships. Meanwhile, Adidas seems to have hit its stride, capturing the essence of this new wave of athletes who are more than just performers. They're influencers, innovators, and trendsetters. By aligning with Clark, they're showing that they're not afraid to challenge the status quo, to push the boundaries of what's possible in the sports industry. They're not just signing athletes. They're investing in individuals who have the potential to redefine their fields and inspire the next generation. Clark's journey with Adidas isn't merely about putting her name on a sneaker. It's about building a legacy that stretches beyond her athletic achievements. There's a meticulous vision in this partnership, where Adidas seems intent on capturing the essence of what makes Clark so magnetic. She's not just another athlete, she's a symbol of the modern game's future. This collaboration could well be the spark that lights a fire under the sports industry, setting a new benchmark for how brands and athletes can grow together, shaping culture and influencing millions along the way. The timing of this deal is significant. Women's sports are experiencing an unprecedented surge in popularity and visibility. The WNBA is thriving. NCAA women's basketball games are pulling in record numbers, and athletes like Clark are front and center, driving that momentum forward. Adidas saw this rising tide and moved quickly, understanding that the conversation around women's sports is shifting from the margins to the mainstream. Clark's signing is a testament to their belief that the future of sports will be shaped as much by its female stars as by its male icons. Adidas has made it clear that they are betting big on the idea that the next wave of influence in sports culture will come from athletes who bring more to the table than just their physical abilities. Clark exemplifies this modern archetype. She's not only a powerhouse on the court, but also a natural leader who speaks her mind and connects with fans in a genuine way. It's this kind of influence that brands crave, a type of charisma that goes beyond endorsements to create a real cultural impact. There's also a deeper strategy at play here for Adidas, a long-term vision that could fundamentally alter how they position themselves against competitors like Nike. For too long, Nike has been perceived as the dominant force, casting a long shadow over its rivals. But the game is changing, and Adidas's playbook is evolving to meet that challenge head-on. By aligning with athletes like Caitlin Clark, they're positioning themselves not as the underdog, but as the brand that's willing to innovate and break the mold. Adidas's approach with Clark highlights a broader cultural shift toward storytelling in sports marketing. It's no longer enough to just showcase an athlete's prowess. There's a growing demand for narratives that resonate on a personal level, stories that connect with the audience beyond the scoreboard. Caitlin Clark's story isn't just about her incredible skills or her on-court highlights. It's about her journey, her mindset, and her determination to push boundaries. Adidas seems to understand that this narrative is as valuable as any physical performance because it turns fans into followers, and followers into brand advocates. While Nike has traditionally relied on its ability to churn out iconic athletes who become synonymous with greatness, Adidas is taking a more holistic approach. They're not just looking to celebrate the athletes' victories. They're looking to amplify their struggles, their triumphs, and their personal growth. With Clark, they're investing in a journey, one that evolves as she evolves, shaping her career and the Adidas brand narrative simultaneously. This kind of synergy is something Nike will have to contend with if they want to stay in the conversation. For Caitlin Clark, this deal is more than just a milestone in her career. It's an opportunity to become a voice of a generation. Clark's authenticity resonates deeply with younger audiences who value transparency and realness. In an era where social media allows athletes to communicate directly with their fans, bypassing traditional media channels, Clark's unfiltered approach to her career and her life makes her a relatable figure to millions. She's not just the athlete you root for. She's the person you want to see succeed. What makes this even more compelling is the fact that Clark's influence is growing at a pace that even seasoned analysts find hard to keep up with. Every game she plays, every record she breaks, is another chapter in a story that is still being written. Adidas has tapped into that momentum at the perfect moment, harnessing her rising star to fuel their broader ambitions. They've seen what the future could look like, and they're betting on Clark to lead the charge into that new era. This partnership is also a strategic move to bring more diversity and inclusivity into the brand's ethos. Women's representation in sports has come a long way, but there is still room for growth. Adidas's decision to spotlight Clark is a clear signal that they're committed to elevating female athletes, not as secondary players in the game, but as its key figures. Clark's presence on the roster challenges outdated notions about women's roles in sports endorsements, pushing the industry to acknowledge that women athletes can drive just as much passion, loyalty, and cultural significance as their male counterparts. For Nike, this is a reminder that no matter how dominant they are, the competition is always lurking, ready to take a shot when the opportunity presents itself. They built an empire on the idea that they are the ultimate destination for elite athletes, but Clark's decision proves that today's generation is looking for more than just the prestige of a logo. They want partnerships that reflect their own values, aspirations, and the kind of change they wish to see in the world. As Caitlin Clark's career with Adidas progresses, there's a palpable sense of excitement about what comes next. Adidas is not just content with signing her. They're investing in her growth as an athlete and as a brand ambassador who will help them reshape the sports landscape. Clark has the potential to become not just a basketball star, but a cultural icon, a role model whose influence extends into fashion, lifestyle, and beyond. This multidimensional approach is something that few athletes achieve, but with Adidas's support, Clark is well on her way to breaking those barriers. Caitlin Clark's influence is already being felt far beyond the hardwood. She's become a symbol of what it means to break the mold, to defy expectations, and to chart a course that feels true to her own vision. Adidas didn't just sign an athlete. They signed a leader, a pioneer, someone who isn't afraid to take risks and challenge the status quo. This isn't just a partnership. It's a revolution in how we think about sports, branding, and the power of individual influence. As the spotlight shines brighter on Clark and Adidas, the world watches to see how far this partnership will go. One thing is for sure. This is more than a moment. It's the beginning of a movement where the athlete isn't just the face of the brand. They're its heartbeat, its pulse, the driving force that propels it forward. Caitlin Clark and Adidas are not merely rewriting the rules. They're inventing a whole new playbook. And in this game, it's clear that they're playing to win. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.